Every day begins before the world speaks to us, before the noise of obligation, expectation, and fear arises. There is a moment, often unnoticed, when we stand at the threshold of awareness. In that moment, what we tell ourselves matters more than anything the day will later demand. So today, and every day, there are 9 quiet truths worth remembering, not as affirmations to force, but as gentle recognitions of what already is. To tell yourself that you are not alone in this moment is not a comforting phrase meant to soothe fear. It is a recognition of reality beneath appearances. Much of human strain comes from the assumption that life is something we must manage, defend, and carry by personal strength alone. When this belief is accepted, even unconsciously, every challenge feels heavier than it is, and every decision becomes charged with anxiety. Yet beneath the surface of thought and circumstance, there is a presence that is already functioning, already sustaining breath, heartbeat, awareness, and order. You did not create this presence, and you do not need to direct it. It existed before effort and remains untouched by success or failure. To remember that you are not alone is to step out of isolation created by the mind and into conscious partnership with the intelligence that animates life itself. This awareness dissolves the feeling of being abandoned in struggle and replaces it with quiet assurance. It does not mean problems immediately vanish. It means they are no longer faced from a place of separation. When fear arises, this remembrance gently shifts attention away from panic and toward trust. When uncertainty appears, it prevents the mind from racing ahead to worst-case conclusions. Being not alone does not imply an external rescue arriving later. It reveals that support is already present now within consciousness itself. The moment you stop insisting on personal control, something deeper begins to operate naturally. Insight replaces confusion, patience replaces urgency, and action becomes simpler. This truth does not require belief or faith as effort. It reveals itself through stillness and listening. When you acknowledge this presence inwardly, you stop demanding answers from the outer world and begin receiving understanding from within. Life ceases to feel like a burden imposed on you and begins to feel like a movement occurring through you. The sense of companionship here is not emotional dependence but spiritual awareness, where loneliness dissolves not because something is added, but because the illusion of separation quietly falls away. To tell yourself that you do not need to fix yourself today is a radical departure from the habitual belief that something is always wrong. Much of inner tension is sustained by the constant self-evaluation that measures worth against imagined standards of improvement. This silent pressure creates a cycle in which effort replaces understanding and self-correction becomes a way of life rather than a momentary necessity. Yet the impulse to fix assumes deficiency, and deficiency is not a fact but a conclusion drawn by restless thought. When this assumption is questioned, a deeper truth emerges. What you truly are is not broken, fragmented, or incomplete. The qualities you seek, peace, clarity, strength, are not manufactured through correction. They are uncovered when struggle subsides. The drive to fix often interferes with natural unfolding, like tugging at a seed to make it grow faster. By releasing the need to repair yourself, you allow growth to occur without resistance. This does not mean ignoring responsibility or denying areas of learning. It means approaching change without self-judgment. When judgment falls away, insight arises more easily. You begin to notice that many perceived flaws dissolve when they are no longer fought. The mind, accustomed to control, resists this idea because it equates effort with progress. But true transformation does not come from pressure, it comes from awareness. When you stop attempting to correct your inner state, space opens for wisdom to function on its own. Emotional patterns soften, clarity replaces confusion, and behavior adjusts naturally without force. This remembrance also frees you from postponing peace until you become better. Peace is not a reward for self-improvement. It is the ground from which genuine improvement flows. When you rest in acceptance, life moves you forward without strain. The constant inner dialogue of self-repair quiets, revealing a sense of wholeness that was always present beneath the noise. In this state, change becomes effortless, not because nothing evolves, but because evolution is no longer driven by fear of being inadequate. To tell yourself that you can pause is to reclaim a power that has been gradually surrendered to urgency. Much of modern strain is not caused by events themselves, but by the belief that everything requires immediate response. This belief keeps the mind in a continuous state of motion, jumping from thought to thought, reacting before understanding has time to form. When you remind yourself that you can pause, you interrupt this momentum and create space where clarity naturally appears. A pause is not avoidance. It is a return to awareness. In that brief stillness, the nervous system settles, perception widens, and the mind stops mistaking speed for intelligence. Many decisions made in haste are later revised, while those arising from quiet awareness tend to carry an effortless rightness. The pause allows you to observe instead of react, to listen instead of defend. It reveals that not every stimulus is a command. Thoughts lose their authority when they are not instantly obeyed. Emotions, too, soften when given room to pass rather than being resisted or acted upon. This inner stopping point reconnects you with a deeper rhythm that is not governed by clocks or demands. In stillness, intuition becomes audible. Guidance does not compete with noise, it emerges when noise subsides. The pause also breaks identification with pressure. You realize that urgency is often a habit, not a necessity. By pausing, you discover that life continues to move forward without your constant intervention. This recognition dissolves the fear that everything will collapse if you stop managing it. Instead, you witness an underlying order that functions with or without your mental commentary. The ability to pause restores balance between action and being. Action that follows stillness is precise and calm, free from tension and regret. Over time, this practice reshapes how you experience challenges. Situations that once triggered anxiety now invite reflection. The pause becomes a doorway through which peace enters daily life, not as an escape, but as a natural response arising from trust in a deeper intelligence already present. To tell yourself that you are guided, even when you cannot see the path, is to step beyond the demand for visible certainty. The human mind is conditioned to trust only what it can outline, predict and control, and when those markers are absent, anxiety quickly fills the space. Yet guidance does not operate on the level of constant explanation. It functions quietly, often unnoticed, shaping direction through subtle impressions, inner nudges, and a sense of rightness that cannot be logically defended. When you accept that guidance is present even without clear evidence, you stop pressuring the moment to reveal everything at once. This releases the fear of making the wrong move and replaces it with a willingness to move forward gently. Much of confusion arises not from lack of direction, but from refusal to trust what is unfolding. When the mind insists on certainty before movement, progress stalls. Guidance, however, meets you in motion, not in paralysis. It unfolds step by step, never revealing the entire path because awareness grows through participation. When you acknowledge this unseen support, you begin to notice patterns that once seemed accidental. Timing aligns, necessary help appears, obstacles redirect rather than block. This recognition does not remove responsibility, it refines it. You still act, but without the burden of believing the outcome rests solely on personal effort. Intuition becomes more reliable when doubt loosens its grip. Decisions made from quiet listening carry less tension, even when they challenge comfort. Trusting guidance does not mean life becomes predictable. It means uncertainty no longer feels threatening. You learn to distinguish between fear's urgency and guidance's calm. Fear pushes and pressures, guidance invites and steadies. Over time, this inner trust deepens through experience rather than belief. Each moment of being supported without understanding how strengthens confidence in the unseen order at work. The path may remain unclear, but your footing becomes sure because it is grounded in awareness rather than expectation. To tell yourself that you release the need to control outcomes is to loosen the grip of fear disguised as responsibility. Control often appears reasonable, even necessary, but beneath it lies a belief that life cannot be trusted to unfold without constant management. This belief quietly exhausts the mind, keeping it alert for threats and disappointments that may never arrive. When you attempt to control outcomes, attention shifts away from presence and becomes fixed on imagined futures. This creates tension because the future is shaped by countless factors beyond personal influence. Releasing control does not mean withdrawing from action, it means acting without attachment to how things must turn out. There is a profound difference between participation and domination. When attachment to results fades, effort becomes lighter and more intelligent. You respond to what is needed now instead of forcing circumstances to match expectation. This inner release allows a deeper order to function, one that coordinates timing, relationships, and opportunities more effectively than planning alone. Control narrows perception, surrender widens it. When you stop insisting on a specific outcome, you become receptive to alternatives that may better serve growth. Often, what appears as failure or delay is simply redirection. The mind resists this idea because it equates surrender with weakness, yet true surrender requires strength and trust. It is the courage to remain open when certainty is unavailable. As control relaxes, emotional turbulence settles. Anxiety loses its fuel because there is no longer a rigid future to protect. Disappointment softens because expectations are held lightly. You begin to notice that life often resolves situations in ways you could not have orchestrated. This recognition builds confidence in something larger than personal strategy. Releasing control also restores natural timing. Instead of rushing or forcing, you sense when to act and when to wait. Action becomes aligned rather than compulsive. Over time, this shift transforms how challenges are experienced. They no longer feel like battles to be won, but movements to be navigated. The burden of outcome falls away, leaving clarity, resilience, and a quiet assurance that whatever unfolds contributes to a larger harmony beyond immediate understanding. To tell yourself that this moment is sufficient is to dissolve the habit of postponing fulfillment. Much inner unrest is sustained by the belief that peace exists somewhere else, after a problem is solved, after circumstances improve, after a future condition is met. This belief subtly devalues the present, turning it into a waiting room rather than a living reality. When you recognize that this moment is sufficient, attention returns from imagined futures to what is actually here. Sufficiency does not mean perfection. It means completeness in its own form. Even discomfort loses some of its intensity when it is no longer interpreted as a mistake. The present moment, when fully acknowledged, contains everything necessary for the next step to appear. When you resist what is happening now, tension multiplies. When you allow it, understanding unfolds naturally. This recognition interrupts the endless search for satisfaction through change. Instead of demanding that life improve before peace is allowed, peace becomes the atmosphere in which life unfolds. The mind often argues against this, insisting that acceptance will lead to stagnation. Yet acceptance does not prevent movement, it removes friction. From sufficiency arises clearer perception, and from clarity arises appropriate action. When you stop comparing the present to an imagined ideal, energy that was wasted on resistance becomes available for insight. You begin to notice subtle details that were previously overlooked, small alignments, quiet supports, inner steadiness. The sense of lack diminishes, not because circumstances shift immediately, but because awareness shifts. This moment ceases to be an obstacle and becomes a foundation. Over time, living from sufficiency reshapes your relationship with desire and fear. Desire becomes guidance rather than craving, and fear loses urgency because nothing essential is missing now. Each moment stands complete, not as a final destination, but as a fully inhabitable place where life expresses itself without delay.